I have a packed week here. I've been using Claude a lot to help me manage my life, and what I'd love to ask Claude is, am I going to be late to any of these meetings? I can go to Claude and I can ask it this, but the problem is it only has the Google Calendar MCP server that can only see and move my meetings. So what I did is I created a completely custom MCP server just for this purpose that calculates the distance between all of my meetings and tells me if I'm going to be late for all of them. In this tutorial, I'll go over how to set this up in Fused, how to connect it to Claude, and what else you can build. All of the links are going to be in the description. Let's dive in. The first thing that you need to do is you need to go to fuse.io/workbench to create an account. We're going to use Claude Code to be able to actually write the code itself. It's going to push it to Fused, and then we're going to create the MCP server in Fused and hook it back up to Claude Code. So for that, you need a fuse.io account. The second thing that we're going to go do is we're going to go to this repo, the skills repo, and we're going to give this to Claude Code. Now, what this is going to do is it's basically going to ask Claude to install the Fused CLI so that in your terminal, Claude Code can actually write functions, push them to projects in Fused. That's where they get automatically deployed, and then we can iterate so we don't have to write a line of code for ourselves. So the link to this skill is in the description. You just take this, paste it into Claude Code and say, hey, install this package and install this skill. There's the Python package that it's going to install, and then there's the skill for how to write things in Fused. Now, I've already set Claude up so that it has the Fused skill, and locally I have the Fused library. I also have logged in. You need to go do that before you can get started. Now, for Claude, the desktop app, to be able to access all of this, we're going to need in Fused to give a few permissions, and we're going to use a few API keys. Basically, what we're going to do is we're going to use some of the Google Places routing APIs to calculate the distance between all the different places that I need to go to in my meetings. So there is the final project that is here. It will be linked in the description so you can pull it and do it yourself. You're going to have to pass a few secrets. We're going to rebuild it together, but if you want to just dive in and pass your own data, you can start doing it right here. A few things. You need to go to the Google Cloud credentials. You need to show API key, get that API key from the Maps platform, and then in Fuse, we're going to add it. So you go here to integration and secrets. You can scroll down to team secrets, and then we're going to add a new secrets. You can call this one the Google Maps API, and then you can paste your key in there, save it, and that allows Fused to have access to your API keys. Now, this is really nice because when we're going to ask Claude to write some code for us in Fused, it's not going to be passing secrets around. It's going to use Fused to say, hey, get my secret. This is where it is, just like a .env basically, but it will be hosted all of here in Fused. A couple other things, you need to make sure that the Google Calendar API, the Google Routes API, and the Places API new are all managed on your key and enabled. This is because we're going to use these in Python to say, give me the latitude, longitude of that area. That is going to be with the calendar and the Places API, and then the routing is going to say, I need to go from this place to this place. How long does it take? Do I have enough time? It's not very complicated Python, but we need to be able to have access to be able to do all of that. Once we have all of that set up, we are ready to build. Now, I already wrote a little prompt that we can ask Claude to basically go and build this for us. So I set up my new Claude session. I'm going to paste this in here, and while Claude goes, I'm going to read it out so that you can better understand how to plan these projects. Build a new Fused project that I can expose as an MCP server that contains 2 visible endpoints that tell me which meetings I'll be late to from my Google Calendar based on real-time driving data between my consecutive meeting locations. And the 2 endpoints I want are for a single day, given a date, return which meeting I can't make it to, and then do that same analysis but running it in parallel. Fuse allows you to take a function and then run it in parallel directly. I want to know which days this week has the worst commute. And I want these 2 endpoints to return the name of the meeting I'm going to be late to, how long the trip is going to take from the previous meeting, and how much there's currently available in between my meetings to know if I'm going to be able to make it or not. And then I told, here's my Google Maps API and here's my Google Calendar URL. Give me a plan before we implement it, and let's go building. The other thing is, for the purposes of this demo, I just made my calendar public in here. This is all a dummy calendar. The way I did this is you go up here, you go to settings and share, and you'll see see, make available to public, show all event details. This allows me to access this demo project without having to set up anything more complicated. All right, so Claude Code comes back with a proposition. The Google Cal demo live. It's going to be 5 UDFs. The UDFs are these functions that we're going to have. 3 helper are hidden and 2 are exposed as endpoints. Fetch calendar, geocode, compute, late meeting single day, late meeting date range. And these are going to be the ones that Claude, when I'm in the desktop app, can now go and talk to. And so what it's going to do is it's fetch the calendar events, geocode the events location, compute the routing time, and then it will generate a list of the weekdays. It will run the multi-processing in Fused. And then I'm going to say, this plan looks good. Let's implement. I already have it here set up, and this is the one that you can find in the description, but we're going to rebuild it together. At the end, what I'm going to be able to say is I can ask Claude directly in the desktop app, am I going to be late for any of my meetings this week? And under the hood, it actually goes and calls Fused, calls the MCP server that we had created that gets the latitude location, calculates the routing, and then passes all the results back. And then it says, yep, there's going to be a bunch of these meetings that you are late to. Now, this is really cool because it means that I can then ask Claude to move my meetings because it has access to the Google Calendar MCP server directly, the one from Google, and this tool that I built to calculate my routing. I can basically ask Claude to optimize my whole calendar for me. Given that I approve of what he wants to do, I'm giving it the tool. I'm building all the tools that Google doesn't give me to be able to manage my calendar directly. So under the hood, Claude Code is going to write all the code for me. It's going to put it all in this canvas for me that we're going to go explore when it's done. All right, Claude is done, and it says the canvas is live here. So I can just click on the link, and this will open this in a new tab. Claude basically wrote the code, pushed it over to Fused, and then I say, hey, confirm map operation. Do you want to run this? Because we're running things in parallel, we just get this little pop-up and see, I'm going to say run, and then I'm going to see that there's multiple of these functions. Some of them are hidden here. This means that when we pass them as an MCP server, they will not be visible as tools. Only these 2 that are currently running right here will be available for my agent later on to be able to see. So here we go. This is the one that runs for a single day. We can already see that there's my breakfast and podcast recording, that I have 0 buffer and I'm going to be late. And then the other one, I have 30-minute buffer, but I'm still going to be late because the travel time takes 39 minutes to go there. And now here it seems like there is an error. So I'm just going to pass that over to Claude, and I'm going to say range UDF fails with. And Claude could go actually and run this as well. I could ask it to, hey, go check it, test it out, and fix it yourself. I think this should be a relatively trivial error for Claude to fix. So I'll let it go and change that. What's going to happen is that every time Claude makes a change, it's going to push it to Fused. All of this is just immediately deployed. All right, so now I have one function that returns for a single day and another that returns the date range for all the different days. Now I have my functions. They're running serverlessly in Fused. The only piece that's missing is to deploy this as an MCP server, and that's very easy. I just come here at the top and click share, and then by default, this is not shared. I can click enable sharing. I'm going to set this to public. What this means is that every one of these functions is now an endpoint. Let's take a look at this here. If I click on Open API, this gives me a list of all the API endpoints that we have. And you'll notice there's only 2. That's what we asked for. Now, the reason that there's only 2 is that we have 5 components here, but only 2 are visible. You can see that if I come here and I hide this one, it's also hidden there. If I come back to the API and I refresh, I only have 1 now. So this is how I can have all these different helper functions, and I decide what I'm going to expose. Now, once we have that, it's very easy. We just come up here, we copy MCP. If you are in Claude Code, you can just directly paste it in here. But what I want to do is I want to set it up in my Claude desktop. So I'm going to go in Claude Cowork. I'm going to go to Customize, Connectors, and then I'm going to add here, Add Connector and Add Custom Connector. I'm going to call this the Fused Google Calendar Routing demo, and then I'm going to paste in here. Now, by default, this has the CLI, so we're just going to remove all of that, so we just have the URL. It should look something like this: https://udf.ai/fc and then some token.mcp. This is what you will get. I'm using our development branch here, but you will get the udf.ai. And then I add it here. Now, once we do that, Claude is going to check, and it sees our two tools that we have here: late meeting date range and late meeting single day. I'm going to remove the one that I used before so we can test the one that we just built. And now I have my two tools. I have Google Calendar. This allows Claude to look at my calendar, to move my meetings, to add any new meetings, but that's it. And now we have this custom MCP server that we created where we can take a look at the date range and single day. So, and now I can come in, I can say, look at my calendar and tell me if there's any meetings that I'm going to be late to this week. Claude is very smart. It has access to all these MCP. It knows how to connect them all together. It's able to look at the different tools, find the tool that it needs, and then call them. It asks me, hey, we're going to run this new one from today's date until the end of the week. Are you okay to run this? I'm going to say, I'll allow for this task, and then it's going to be able to run it. Basically, what we've done is we've allowed Claude to be able to have functionality that it didn't have by simply just creating a new MCP server. This is really cool because as these projects, as these MCP servers, as these connectors in Claude Code expand, there's going to be some gaps you're going to want to build for yourself. Infuse is a really cool place to be able to build that because you have that serverless compute. You have the keys management where Claude itself doesn't touch my keys. It just calls endpoints. So I can decide what I expose to it and what I don't. And now Claude gives me a summary of everything that's going to happen this week. I'm going to be late for my breakfast and my podcast recording. I'm going to be late for my breakfast and my conference. Wednesday and Friday look the worst. I'm going to say, can we move or cancel some meetings so that I'm on time for all of them? Lunch, breakfast, and gym are the easiest to move around to start with. And now I have this tool that's really enabling me to take control of my calendar. This time it's pulling the Google Calendar MCP server because that's the one that it needs to see the state of everything I have, takes the data from the routing calculation that we just did, and it's going to propose me a plan that we can go and implement. So this is how I can use these different MCP tools to really use AI agents to help me. So I can tell Claude, hey, make the changes and check that I'll be on time for all of them again. And that's how you can build something for yourself in Fuse to add a custom MCP server that you want. If you want to check it out, all the links are in the description. Just go to fuse.io to start building, pass it to Claude. It's incredible what you can build these days. A few things I recommend you taking a look at if you want to see how we can optimize this a little bit more. One is some of the best practices for writing with Claude Code, and two is understanding a little bit how caching works in Fuse so that as you make new calls, you have less compute and it's a lot faster. With that, I'll catch you next time.